Okay, I think we're live. So let me just check. Okay, so you can see the window, I assume. I'm just going to resize it a bit so I can see both. Yep, right. Okay, I think this is good. Right. Okay. So I'm going to read this article that I've been saving on my browser tab. I have this open for like 1 week already. And I have yet started reading it, so might as well force myself to read this right now. So I maybe let's start with the context. So this post, let's see how I can best frame it. But moats, the concept, the idea of moat is it's something that, in the sense that if your product or your company has a moat, a business moat, it means it's more defensible. So what kind of defensibility mechanism? Um, so this essay is trying to break down the type of defensibility mechanism that a company or a product that's driven by machine learning can have. Like, for example, is it uh, like how do you gain competitive advantage by the time you're running a company or a product that is machine learning driven or machine learning based? So I'm interested in this topic because, just because. The yeah, sorry, this is kind of crap explanation, but um, yeah, I mean business and tech is interesting. So yeah, let's just get started. I'm putting the link on the description. So I'm going to take my own advice the last time like I did this. So I realized that I should probably start reading from the bottom because it just made for a more exciting reading experience. Um, Although you can let me know if that theory is true or not. So let's start from the bottom. Um, yeah, I'm going to read a comment later also, if that's, if I haven't gotten like sleepy yet, because suddenly I feel quite drained. All right, let's start from the last section. Other opportunities for moats. Yeah, discussing. So this makes sense because, like, if you think about companies in two ways, which is we are selling to a vertical versus you're a horizontal company. Horizontal means you are serving more than one industry and you're the provider of the tools, industry agnostic. Like I can talk about the last company I worked for. They sell tools to do data extraction, so they don't they offer it to any company like who is interested in doing data extraction. So they're not like the business strategy is not very industry centric. So any company, whether it's e-commerce, it's HR, academia. They, not to belabor the point, uh, but yeah, vertical versus um, horizontal company. And so Lensa is built on stable diffusion, so you don't have Moat at all. It won by being first. Yep, this is a valid. I don't have any point, any argument against this. So because stable diffusion in I'm sure you're aware, but stable diffusion is an open source image. It's one of the image generation model, but it's open source. So Lensa doesn't actually have, anybody can, um, theoretically anybody can build Lensa clone, but Lensa was able to capitalize on this modeless existence because they were first, and I don't think they're going to be able to sustain the success just because uh, people will just, yeah. So sorry, my brain is starting to shut down actually right now, but I just want to finish this before going to bed. So weight and bias, Hugging Face are early winners by building incumbency in ML stacks. So I'm not familiar with this one. So weight and biases, but Hugging Face, they play in a different game. So they're the platform provider. So they sort of they are the horizontal player that I kind of described on the first point, which is they provide just like AWS, right? They provide the infrastructure for companies who wants to work with ML, machine learning. So existing giants like Google or DeepMind could conceivably have a moat by building their giant ML training infrastructure. What if GPUs are not available and they're the only ones scaling model to the next size scale? Conceivably have moats by building their giant. Yeah. Maybe it's just I just don't get what the last point is trying to argue. So there are tons of ways that companies can defend their business, but I'm most interested in the time to keep reading about scaling laws. Okay, that section is fine. The feedback from multiple, yeah, blah blah blah. So let's see where else can we start reading. That's interesting. So emergence is the nonlinear growth in performance relative to dataset size. Scaling is loosely coupled to diverse and large dataset, right? User data is useful, rating, crucial. So I think what it's saying here is that the dataset size will affect the emergence. As an emergence, maybe let's look at where this article is talking about, right? Okay, I think this is a good place to go into this point, which is emergent behavior as a new type of mode. So I think, maybe I'll read it first before kind of guessing what uh, the author is trying to argue. So emergent behavior on the anti-promise, the theme are becoming increasingly relevant as ML models. Yep, this is more data does not necessarily solidify a business position. So there's a diminishing return to the scaling law. Right now, there's I don't know, a concept. I think you can call it a concept. Like the concept of scaling. The scaling law is like the premise or the suggestion there is, as long as you keep on scaling either the dataset size or the compute power, then you'll be able to make your model more powerful. Now, the counter argument for that theory is there's a diminishing return, the point of diminishing return, where more dataset is not going to give you that much gain. So probably there's still some gain, but it just peters out. It's not going to be linear. So okay, so for some areas of deep learning, we're still seeing adding data follow a log curve of growth. Yep, and then like I was saying, more data improve performance less and less. Now, for the accelerating areas of deep learning, you're seeing incredibly increasing incredible suddenly by the time. Yeah, okay, sounds far out. Nope. So okay, it's almost like once you cross a threshold of data, either I think the quantity of data or the quality of data, then you get some emergent behavior that kind of came out of nowhere, uh, or probably basically when you hit this state, then that diminishing return is manifesting. So let's look at core figures. It shows emergence across a variety of tasks and models versus a random baseline. Right. So emergence is the nonlinear growth. This scaling is closely coupled to diverse and large datasets. Scaling laws can be studied here. All right, user data is so combine this propensity for emergence in stars with the high cost for OpenAI's most crucial data sources. These traditional data modes are fake. Seems false rate. I think this is interesting one to read later. But so given how paper after paper have shown unexpected behavior emerging when an arbitrary scaling point, we can form new guesses on how data network effects can work for ML-first company. If adding new data, extremely dense data, so if adding new data leads to new abilities and extremely concentrated usage, then data can provide lasting advantages in a way not seen before. This sort of hypothesis where scaling law and is why I'm so interested in the next 10 years. Okay. So the let's see how actually. So this article seems to only propose. So is this the gist of what this person's theory is? Okay, so I think yeah, because I started reading this article hoping to get probably 2 or 3 lists of what a mode for machine learning could be, and but I think it's not a list, but it's more of it's not a blacklist approach, but a whitelist approach. No, it's the other way around. So I think it's not saying, okay, these are the modes, but the author here presents this as everything that's not this are the modes. So, it's up to the readers to actually enumerate what those not model items are. But okay, let's read a bit here. Everything in ML except for the model itself is the mode. Seems like the model is the most important artifacts. Yes, and I agree. The problem is models can easily be replaced with fine-tuning or some other procedural change. Model is, but the dataset infrastructure structural advantages, because the model is what is revealed. It's likely to be extracted and manipulated, whether or not the controlling party wants that. Is this implying that the model can be reverse engineered because it's like exposed, so people can guess and fine tune? Mm. Yeah. So I think this paragraph is making the case that it happened plus stable diffusion, but that's open source, so it makes sense that people forks them, and that it's not defensible because it's open source. So I don't really know how this holds for other cases, but okay, this was wild, brief explosion and a tame version of what is to come. Companies will try and protect their brand, not stable. So wasn't, even if stable diffusion wasn't open source, there will be rapidly be openly available alternative. Yeah. So this is definitely, I mean, since let's say the past 1 month, the number of breakthrough and new papers, new frameworks, new models, new package like wrappers around this services, that services, new research, new studies, new um, hacks, new projects coming up. Like in 30 days, probably people are surfacing like 120. I don't have any like I cannot back that data up, but um, I don't have the data to back that claim up. But that's what I feel like. I've been paying close attention to all of that. I cannot keep up, definitely, like nobody can, and that's just my feeling. Like every day I keep on collecting new releases, new just tracking all of these crazy advancements. Like uh, the gold rush is definitely happening right now. People are this frenzy, this AI gold rush. People start building. I mean, it's so, the enthusiasm is amazing, and I love it. Uh, I mean, I'm not a builder at this point. I'm really observing the whole hype, but I haven't seen this level of energy in tech for some time. So yeah, it's and the fact that AI has been adopted, it has like the implementation. I mean, compared to blockchain, for example, right? I mean, I'm not saying that blockchain is hype and it's not real, but it was not yet there in terms of the maturity of, it's not widely adopted. I mean, the whole infrastructure is still being built, and there's just the barrier to I'm a bit rambling here, but basically the point is I love the energy in the AI space right now. People jump on the bandwagon and they start building. They like investments are yeah, VCs are pouring money on really probably silly projects that it's not going to pay off from what I see. I mean, we'll see how many of these companies or products will still be here in 6 months' time. But okay, going back to the topic. So Next, for the lesser known way a model can be stolen, model distillation. Okay, this is what I was, kind of guessing here. Not guessing, more like inferring from his statement here. But so apparently he elaborated on that point here. So when a model like GPT-3 is opened up via an API, then users can generate numerous outputs associated with prompts and use them to fine-tune a model of similar architecture. While this isn't perfect, it's expected to create a model of similar. So yeah, I mean it makes sense, but so his point is whatever model, as long as the input and output can be are available for people to send an input to and generate an output from, then that whole pattern of behavior, that black box in the middle, can be reverse engineered and created and you know uh, clone their own model, their own more optimized model, probably for a very specific use case. But yeah, I mean it's not defensible. So back to the first sentence I think in this section here is that model anything but the model is the real mode. Though this is illegal, yeah. So yeah, okay. This is the term, right? Foundational models. I think basically the argument here is that GPT-3, because it's exposing API, then it can either officially or non-officially be treated as a foundational model for any other services. So derivation from the GPT-3 model, which actually GPT-3 model is the Da Vinci. I mean, all the underlying model names are GPT. Chat GPT is the service on top of the Da Vinci model, for example. But yeah, so models are more challenging to keep under wraps than something like supply chain and manufacturing that spreads out expertise. Mm-hmm. Data is the mode. So this is another important point. I think that it's probably beneficial for the author to break it out, break it out from this paragraph, because I think it's easily missed, can be easily missed if it's buried here. But data is the mode for ML systems right now. When training data is well defined and curated, it can't be taken by one leaving. So data is more defensible than the model. Yeah. OpenAI, especially I think because the training data for OpenAI is publicly available common crawl data, so that makes it even less defensible. The difference would be, and I think I have a pet theory, not well, I don't know what to call it, but I've been in the data space for half of my career of 15 years, and data I we started like that 7 years. We see more and more people guarding their data. So open data, the trajectory where this is going is more walled gardens, where you remember like Facebook, it used to be easily you can grab data from Facebook without logging in, right? Twitter, Instagram, right? But as the time goes, they start employing these registration wall. Their API are getting even more restricted. So they are guarding their data because they know, and it's this is what's going to get worse as the time goes. Basically, that companies that help people gather data from publicly available sources, the data that data is going to get less valuable because it's just not so profitable. It's harder to build something um, unique from data that anybody can access. And this is not a good news for open data. I don't know if it's a community. It's not a community, but the movement, like the spirit of having open data. Like the past 5 years, the anti-bot, like the bot protection industry is thriving. It used to be so easy to crawl websites for data, web scraping. It's relatively easy. I mean, no, not a lot of companies would guard their data, but yeah, some industries guard it better than the other companies, the other industries like e-commerce. People who know that the data that they have are valuable, they would tend to protect it. But as the time goes, we see more and more companies are aware and more conscious about protecting their data from being like collected. LinkedIn is one example where it just started suing people, companies or systems that are harvesting data, even though it's like fair use. Just look it up. Just look up LinkedIn versus HiQ. So HIQ. It's basically that HiQ company is they're building a data-driven product which is based on LinkedIn data. So they crawl LinkedIn without being logged in. So technically, they're not against the LinkedIn TOC terms of TOS. So because as long as the data is technically publicly available, like basically Google can crawl it. Um, Even though I might need to check whether or not LinkedIn has blocked Google from their robots.txt. But anyway, so what was I trying to say? The HiQ, oh yeah, LinkedIn started just suing everybody who does it. But thankfully, HiQ actually won that case. So the the court decided that LinkedIn doesn't have the right, in a way. Like I'm definitely not using the legally the right legal language here, but basically LinkedIn lost that case. So it's deemed to be fair use. The data that HiQ collected was deemed to be fair use. It's not, there's no ground in LinkedIn saying, you can't have the data. So, and training data is, yeah. OpenAI is on the record saying that they reuse prompts from the API to fine tune their model, yeah, and a lot of feedback loops. So every single data that can be generated and can be collected, there's just going to be more consciousness and cognizance around the value of data that a company has and a company produced. So that's the really grand theme that we're definitely going to see further down the line. So think about how many hilarious things people put. Yeah. Yeah. So approve. Yeah. So going back, we got back to the emergent bit there. So I'm going to go to the previous, the what do you call it? The section before. So this is just going over what a moat is. So see, this is what I'm talking about. Like if you start reading from the top, there's a lot of uh, explanation around what a moat is, just a lot of throat clearing, which is fine. Probably, you'll be like, I'd rather you start here because it doesn't make sense if you start from the end. But yeah, let me know whatever you think. So for the sake of discussion, so I think this is an interesting one. Hypothesis. His like so he started with just listing a couple of things that could be, and then I assume well, if I started reading here, I would assume that he would be breaking each of these possibilities down in the body of the text. I mean, in the post further below, but I don't think he didn't. So yeah, it's okay. I mean, I'm just being so hard critical. So yeah, he said like, is it the model, and then is it the data, private data? Anyone? What is this actually? Data transparency. Huh. Interestingly, search AI. They land in this. Huh. I'm going to read this later. So is it network effects or branding? Again, these are how Facebook and Google has classically. Hmm. Yeah, this is a possibility. So basically, aside from data and aside from model, then it's all the business as usual modes, the typical modes in any other companies, like the UX, the way, the value, right? How it's not going, all the non-ML driven companies, all the modes that apply to other type of businesses is going to apply here. And I think what the author believes is actually the model and the data are not the the mode at all. Now I just realized that the, the article doesn't touch compute, because I think compute at this point, it's still it's still a big barrier for com- for companies who want to build their own model, like to compete with, let's say, OpenAI. Compute is one of the biggest barrier, because uh, I I don't quote me on this, but I think it took. I've read or heard somewhere that to train the GPT-5, people are estimating that OpenAI spent like maybe hundreds of millions of dollars on compute, because all the GPUs, all the clusters, and so that's actually the biggest moat at this point in time for any big players to have the advantage over the smaller player, even though there has been all the frameworks, all the alternative frameworks that people have been creating and releasing, where they have just more efficient model, a smaller, I mean, it takes less compute to generate all kinds of optimization that people have been um, uh, discovering. And I believe in 3 months, probably it's going to be, the cost optimization and the compute mode is going to very quickly dissipates. So, but at this point, compute is one thing that's missing here. So network effects, okay, fine. User interface. Will one company be irreplaceable by being the metaphorical search bar for ML? I don't know what to comment. I mean, I nothing comes to mind to comment on this paragraph, but this sentence. But the user interface, I think I'm going to create another video to talk about why I think the real revolution or the real breakthrough that maybe is underrated in terms of the LLM and the whole chat GPT um, uh, explode innovation. What's really, it's not about the output, it's not about, it's basically the real revolution is the way it's going to change people interact. So the human computer interaction bit of that whole system of chat interface, it's not really about that, but it just enables a new wave of a paradigm shift. So people up till now, people in order to communicate with a computer, people need to actually learn another language that the computer speaks, right? Even though you can argue it's not really the language that the computer speaks, because it's like it's not really machine code. So it's already high level, like you have high level programming language, you have all of these layers of abstraction on top of whatever is the real machine language. But still, people go to school to study programming language, right? It's to learn to code. It's still learning a new language that it's not human, right? But this natural language, like if you think LLMs are really NLP, what they are is just an NLP system where it it's the best when you have input of a natural language. You can speak to it like the way you speak with any other human, and it will understand you. Like we can go over like what understanding means for in another time, because that's just something I'm also kind of juggling, as in not juggling, digging into. uh, I know, it can be just a bunch of semantics discussion about semantics, like what is understanding, what is reasoning, can they reason, can they think, are they conscious? It can be just a whole mess of semantics or philosophical discussion. But anyway, so yeah, LLMs are NLP at on steroid. Yeah, it's not really accurate to say it that way, but what's the real revolution is that this is what is possible now is a host of systems that where people don't they can speak to it and it can speak back to them in a way that depicts or mimics understanding. So that's every product that we have right now. We can assess and kind of translate them into what would be a natural language. Let's say reimagine Adobe Photoshop into a natural language with natural language capability. Like every single app, every single tool, every single system that we have right now, you can think of the interface and think about what would be the natural language. How can natural language enhance that system? Either you can, so this is one idea also, where a lot of the work around software right now is around creating middlewares, where you need to make the systems talk to each other. And it often, like the integration, system integration work is huge business. It's a huge, what do you call it, it's a huge business, but it's a huge chunk of where the economic activities in software sits. So imagine if we have a way, like an add-on for any system, uh, to speak to each other, but in natural language. That would make this middleware writers' lives easier. Like, sure, to enable that natural language capability in any system, it will take some time to build that kind of. Probably there's just going to be like a framework that um, uh, I don't know. It's just so many components that can be built to enable so much acceleration. Like, shit's going to get crazy and exciting, basically. Like, but in the end, all the, not all, but probably many of the current work, the tedious uh, part type of work where people are adjusting our are adjusting ourselves to speak the language of computers, think in like programmatically. I mean, just understanding the syntax, deciphering the error messages. That type of work is slowly going to go away, hopefully. And that just means the barrier to entry for that type of work is going to get lower. As in, it's going to get easier to program, to you know, to program middleware. And some people probably is like pushing back on this, right? But it, in a way, the argument doesn't hold, because compared to when people used to code in uh, C, for example, uh, programming in Python right now it's probably not a good analogy, but life's getting easier for people. There are so many frameworks. You don't need to learn actual Python. Probably you just know a framework, and then your life is set. As long as that framework is, you can build something of value from using the framework. But the point is, it's not a bad thing if people's lives are getting easier. Like, more people can jump into tech, then that's a good thing. We're not going to see like jobs will uh, well, I cannot make this claim that this revolution will create more jobs, but historically speaking, yes, technology advancements are usually, they would create more jobs. Yes, the current jobs, some of them will wither, like it's just going to go away, but most of these are just going to change the shape. Like, your job right now will not look like that in not even 5 years, right? In next year, whatever you're doing, your role will not be there, but you will still be needed, because the shape of your work is going to be just different, but there's definitely still a human needed. So, just adapt. Okay, so I'm tired of talking. So user interface, I'm going to probably just riff on this in future videos. well, just one video. I'm not going to riff on this for in a couple of videos, but all right. The most I go on, yeah. So that's all. But apparently, it feels like this article is not actually going too deep into the actual moats, so yeah, it's fine. I'm going to wrap up right now because it's, what time is it? Well, 10 p.m. So